I think, good afternoon, everybody. It's Sue Ellam here from Soulfully Connecting. I've got the great pleasure of interviewing Jan Moore today. Jan is an empowerment, mindset, and manifestation mentor, and she works in the fields of personal and spiritual development. So, hello, Jan. Lovely to see you today.
Hi, Sue, and it's lovely to be here, out in sunny Colorado.
It's not too bad in London today, but we've had some sunny weather, but obviously not up to your standards. I'll have to explain to everybody ahead of time, Jan and her internet connection is a bit dicey at times, so sometimes you'll see her, sometimes you won't, sometimes she'll freeze, sometimes you'll be visible, so please bear with us on that. But her voice is very clear, so and that's the main thing. So Jan, who are you? Who is Jan Moore?
Well, I guess your question is more about who I am than what I do, although I'd like to cover both things. And, you know, I'm a great believer in we're here to explore our beings, not just our doings. So I guess from a personality point of view, my passion is really to help people to step into their power, the true power that they have, not the illusion that they've been programmed to believe in. And my journey has really been exploring that thoroughly myself. And as I'm an absolute sponge to learning, and I've been fascinated by psychology and by spirituality and various different philosophies that you could call religion, but which I prefer to look at as more different spiritual teachings, to really get a deeper understanding about humanity and about who we are as spiritual beings having a human existence. And I really believe that people have far more power than they think they have. And I see my role as really helping them to discover the true self that they are, not just for its own sake, but also to help them to fulfill the purpose that they have in being here. I'm a great believer in exploring spirituality, but in a very grounded way and in a way that applies it to living the physical life that we are here to experience. So it's really about using that spirituality, the energetic power that we have, directed towards fulfilling the unique purpose that every single person has. So it's been an interesting journey for me because I was brought up in a very conventional way. My mum was a very strong woman. She was left to bring up three of us when I was 7. My father left us and I never saw him again, never knew where he was or what happened to him. And she always impressed me with her strength of character and the fact that she really faced this and took responsibility for this. But it was still in a very conventional way of get a good education. You know, she supported me as a girl just as much as the boys. There was absolutely no discrimination in terms of what girls could do versus what boys could do. And I grew up very much in almost with that masculine environment of my older brothers. But so I spent the first 50 years of my life really conforming to that third dimensional conventional view. It was really in 2004, I think, that my journey on a spiritual level really started. And it was actually through my horse, which came to me very miraculously and took me on a journey which led me down a very spiritual path. And that's where I started to really feel compelled to find out more about spirituality, about reincarnation, and was led to discover the law of attraction through The Secret, as most people do. And my career, just to digress for a moment, my career was for over 20 years in IT. And I was a very logical, analytical person. And so when I discovered the law of attraction, it was at a very difficult time of my life when I was having a lot of problems on a personal level, and I was looking for a solution for these problems. I was just not happy with the life I was living and felt there had to be a better way. And that was where I was guided to the law of attraction and the secret. And so I started to apply this and was finding that no matter how much I was doing the positive thinking and the affirmations and the setting intentions, it just wasn't working. So I put my analytical skills to the task of really kind of delving into all the different elements that made this work or not work. And I had a very spiritual experience really at the lowest point of my life, which was like flicking a switch from being a very logically driven person into feeling I had a guide that was steering me much more to the intuitive and following the intuitive and not questioning that, but then backing up the intuitive with the logical. And it was actually a message that I needed to leave the life I was living, the husband I was with, who was very stuck in a very victim, negative, kind of the opposite of what empowerment is all about. And that was when I was led into this wonderful relationship that I have with my husband, Bill, where we have such a soul connection. It really is quite incredible, you know. And we embarked on this journey to create the Festival of Enlightenment. It was a vision that came to me, which was kind of taking Bill's original idea of a business-focused event into this much broader event, which was really about developing consciousness and spirituality. And we approached that as almost like a research project into manifestation. And obviously we don't have the time to go into the whole story, but in effect we started from a position of complete no resources, total trust that this was something we were meant to do. And in 2011 we succeeded in holding the festival in Estes Park, Colorado, and it was a beautiful experience. I have to say, it wasn't on a scale that we thought it would be, but the experience that the people there had was absolutely miraculous, and it really had the outcome that the vision really intended, of an incredibly energetic experience. And it was during that time that I really evaluated who I was and what my purpose was. And it was from that I really developed the start, at least, of the Empower Your Life program, because I looked back on my life and all the different experiences I'd had and the kind of roles that I'd played, and realized that throughout my life, even though I'd been in different professional positions throughout, I had always focused on developing my team, on mentoring, on, you know, really helping those people to achieve the things that they wanted to achieve. And it was like this aha moment of, yes, this is what I'm meant to do. And so really what I'm doing now has developed from all these different elements coming together into, for me, a vision of who I am and what I'm here to do. And also all the factors that I've put together from that kind of analytical approach of the process I can take my clients through in order to get to that level of empowerment, that they do fulfill their purpose, they do live a prosperous life, they have that love, joy, peace and abundance, which is really the ultimate spiritual purpose that we're here to achieve. I find
it very interesting, because a lot of people seem to think that the spiritual life is a bit fluffy, and that it's people wandering around with feathers and angel wings and all this sort of thing all the time, and there's no practicality to it. And I've come across that quite a lot, and there's that kind of assumption that you're a bit airheaded. Now, you're kind of backing up what I believe. I mean, I'm also very analytical, I'm very practical, I'm not fluffy at all. And but I've been doing a spiritual journey for many, many years. I studied as a graphologist, which is very scientific, though it's based on you know, handwriting and something very, very kind of structured. But it's nice to know that there's other people that are really practical and using spirituality in a very practical way, very common sense way, that you don't have to have you don't have to be way out there to grasp it. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, completely. And I think this is one of the problems in the kind of spiritual conscious community. And the way I tend to look at it is we're here really to develop that balance of the left brain, the right brain, the divine feminine, the divine masculine, you know, the logical, the intuition. And these things need to work together. I mean, this is why I tend to be against positive discrimination around women, for example, because to me, the answer to the imbalance between the male and the female is not about putting more women in, because unfortunately, a lot of the women in those positions of power are completely masculinized. And what we are actually moving towards in terms of that conscious evolution is to get the balance of the feminine and masculine energies. And part of my journey has been actually bringing more of the feminine energy in, because I was very, you know, in that left brain, action-oriented male energy. So I've been working on myself in balancing it out by bringing more of the feminine intuition, creativity in combination. And a lot of the spiritual community is too heavily weighted on the feminine energy, and that's even the case with some of the men involved in the spiritual community. And you know, my intention is to bring the recognition of the need for that balance, because you know, it's almost, I've had conversations with people where they're almost waiting to kind of float off into the clouds, and all the issues that they have with this life on the planet are going to be miraculously solved. But actually that's an avoidance of the purpose for why we're here. You know, it's the hardest school in the universe. So we're not here to run away from it and avoid it. We're actually here to embrace it and really develop through the challenges that we face. And it's how we perceive those challenges that determines whether we grow from them or whether we just get into the victim mode and kind of shrink further into that state of disempowerment. So, you know, I very much believe that we're here to embrace the physical, not to avoid it. We're here to embrace the challenges as the means by which we do develop and raise in consciousness. And I believe in actually using a lot of the spiritual practices actually in every moment, in every day. You know, I've talked to many people who can go off and meditate and have a wonderful spiritual experience, but as soon as they get back into the traffic jam or the supermarket queue, it's like they lose that equilibrium. So by teaching people that mindfulness of being present, being conscious of the thoughts, of the emotions, and really taking charge of themselves, and having that inner peace in order to create that outward piece and the outward results. And when I say that, you know, when you get into that state of being, it has an incredible power and energy behind it. It's not soft, it's not weak, it's not fluffy, it's incredibly powerful. And because I've come from a background of, you know, IT logic, but also I was very interested in the sciences growing up. What I like to look at as well is not just the spiritual, it's actually the scientific validation that actually brings the empirical proof, if you like, of the power of consciousness, because this is the key. Things like the quantum physics, Dr. Emoto's work with water crystals and the effect of consciousness on that. I mean, some of the quantum physics is a bit kind of, whoa, you know, so counterintuitive. It's a bit hard to grasp, really, you know, non-locality and all of it. But there are things that I think are really important for people to understand. For example, Bruce Lipton's biology of belief, that we haven't got fixed genes, that our genes respond to the environment, both physical and emotional, that the mind actually controls the body, not the other way around. We're not victims of our physicality. We're the controllers and the creators of our physicality. So we can go through life absolutely in full health if we believe that we are not vulnerable to ill health. So, you know, it's really that consciousness and that power that is the fascination for me.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone into all the scientific stuff as much as you have, though I do know about the water, and I know a little bit about it all. But, you know, people tend to think of it as a bit kind of out there, but how many people who don't consider themselves spiritual have kind of just have a feeling about someone or a place, kind of a hunch, and that's all to do with energy. So it's not different. It's just they haven't thought of it in that way, but it's all energetic. You suddenly either got a strong attraction to someone, and it doesn't have to be a physical attraction, just somebody you feel you've known them forever, or have a repulsion or feeling of, oh, there's something about that person. And so many people have got that but they wouldn't think of it in terms of quantum physics or anything else, would they?
No, I think sometimes or often, they don't consciously take note of it. I mean, I know in my previous life, before intuition, I did have the intuition. Before that, consciousness of intuition, I suppose, is what I would say, that I would have these intuitive feelings and hunches, and I'd argue myself out of them on a logical basis. No, I can't possibly do that. That's ridiculous. And actually, you know, the point is your intuition knows so much more, your higher self knows so much more than your kind of human consciousness. And now I allow, you know, I really trust the intuition and use the logic. Once my intuition has said go in this direction, then it's the logic of, okay, now what do I need to do to achieve that? So it's not that logic isn't important, it's getting it in the right sequence. So trust that intuition. And, you know, I tell people, well, if you're not really sure how to act, what step to take, do nothing. Wait for the answer to come. And that's very counter what we're taught. Take action, 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 you know, just do things. And that can so much upset the apple cart because you're kind of getting things. I talk about it like the universe with a project plan, you know, from my IT days. And there's this universal project manager up there managing your manifestation, and they've got all the resources, all the people, you know, the physical resources, and they've also got the dependencies all in sequence. And if you try and push things to happen on your agenda, you can upset all the interdependencies and end up pushing it back instead of pushing it forward. So, you know, there is a real case for wait until you feel you know what the next step is, and look out for the signs and the messages that'll actually open up the path for you.
What I'm interested in is how do you get your clients? I mean, are they part of the way on the journey already, or do you get them? Do you get people who don't know anything about this recommended, or just coming out of interest? I mean, how do people get through your door?
Primarily, it's because they've reached a point of challenge. I mean, I find it difficult to classify what I do sometimes because I'm not a conventional life coach at all. You know, I'm very much more a mentor and a teacher as well as what you would call a coach. And I work with people who have awakened to this and who are seeking answers in terms of the bigger picture as well as their own personal circumstances. And I really, you know, I've had many conversations with my clients who say, I don't really know how you do this, because there's a lot of intangibles. You know, I have a process, but I work very intuitively and energetically and empathically. And what I help my clients to do is to really get an understanding of who they are and what is happening to them in terms of the bigger picture and the bigger purpose and things like this. So it is always people who have an interest in the consciousness spiritual. I can't work with people who are not open to questioning and exploring, because it's just counterproductive. So they do have to be already kind of starting on this path in order to really get the benefit, and be open to accepting things that are probably the opposite of what they've been taught to believe.
Yeah, it's shell shocked. Don't people get quite a bit shell shocked when they first realize that it isn't a lot of hooey, as they say, that it's actually a very solid base.
Yes.
And yes, I what you're saying about the law of attraction, it is what you believe, what you know inside yourself. You can talk and say affirmations until you're blue in the face, but if you don't truly believe it, then and it is a process, isn't it? You kind of you manifest £20 or dollars, and then you think, oh, it does work, and then you can get further and further as you go along. You get more faith in it, and then you believe. Then you can create. And it's not more. I mean, I know the secret tend to be quite on a material level that I found, but it's also about the peace of mind, all the wonderful non-tangible stuff that you can create. You can create an impact. So that's what I find fascinating about it. So what are the particular challenges you face, Jan, in the work that you do?
I think one of the challenges is really kind of explaining the work in a way that people can really get to grips with, because a lot of it is intangible. And you know, I was having a conversation with somebody recently, because Bill, my husband, he's obviously been on this path, but his focus is much more on the business side, and we're actually about to launch a new platform in the next week, which is a really powerful platform from developing business. And that opportunity came to us again quite miraculously in terms of timing. But one of the comments from the people that created this platform is, you know, it's much easier to explain the benefits of business coaching, because you're talking tangible terms in terms of, if you follow this strategy, your profits are going to raise by this much, or you'll get this many more customers. Or with life coaching, empowerment coaching, transformational coaching, it's much less easy to quantify the results. And of course, people are looking for things on different levels. It's not a simple, I'm looking for more business. It could be, I'm looking for a better relationship, or a better, I want to move into my purpose, or whatever. But they're always the same. You know, you have to work on that inner in order to work on an outer. And interestingly, my latest client actually found me through the internet, looking at what I'd written, and it's actually in Japan, of all places, really kind of connected with the energy and the philosophy that I was putting out. So I guess one challenge is, like many coaches, really getting in a meaningful conversation with people who want the kind of help that I can provide. So that's one thing, which I think is no news. And, you know, also, just as a digression as well, I want to go back for a minute to this whole thing about, you know, how action oriented the whole society is. Because I discovered I use a lot of personality tests with my clients, because it's a way of really exploring and understanding who they are, and why perhaps things are difficult for them and other things are easy. And, you know, our tendency is to beat ourselves up if we're not perfect at anything, because that's how we're brought up, you know, through school. So a really key part of empowerment is the self-discovery that leads to that self-acceptance and self-love. And one of the personality tests that I came across probably a couple of years or more now since I discovered it is something called Jovian Archive, also known as human design. And it's a very complex system, actually. And it's a combination of the I Ching and astrology and numerology and various things. And what that, the profiles that has are split into 5 different types. And I don't want to spend too much time going into the detail, but what was fascinating is that there's only one personality type that can energetically go out and initiate and take action, and that's the manifester. And it's not kind of linked to manifestation, but every other type has to, in some way or shape or form, respond rather than initiate. And if certain types try and push something to happen, it can literally blow up in their face, or they get a lot of resistance, or things just don't happen. And of course, the motivational community are all into take action, take action, take action. And there's only one personality type that works for. So it's not surprising that a lot of people come away from those motivational workshops and so on, that find that they're not getting the results they've got. And actually it becomes counterproductive, because they then lower their self-esteem, thinking they're not good enough, instead of actually raising it and enabling themselves to move forward. And so I've had to make quite a shift in the way I approach things, because my personality type, which is a manifesting generator, it's somebody who is very active, but they have to respond to opportunities. They have to respond to some kind of intuitive message or something, rather than just going out there and starting things. And interestingly, since I've kind of acknowledged and accepted that difference on an energetic level, I've found that doors have started to open and opportunities have come to me, and I've been invited onto platforms and interviews, and all sorts of things, and clients have found me rather than me feeling I've got to go out and find them. So it's a really interesting process, and something I'm continuing to learn about and research to use with my clients. But honestly, the aha moments that it's been bringing to people that explain why they've perhaps struggled to get the success that they wanted, because they've been following the manifestor path of take action, 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 when it actually is counterproductive for them. So
that's fascinating you say that, because I've always waited for the signpost to come up. And I know that people that are close to me, they think, well, why don't you get this done? You should do this, you should do that. And something in it feels like a physical, I get drawn back. I don't have the enthusiasm. And then maybe a few days later or a week later, suddenly the enthusiasm comes and I move forward at quite a speed. But it's always like a switch has to be flipped before I do that. And I remember many years ago, a friend of mine, at that time, she said, we're going to meet this guy I used to work with. He's not like you at all. He goes out and he tries everything, and the way it came across was that, well, he's a go-getter and you're just lazy, you know.
It ought to be like that, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, oh, and it made me think, because I hadn't really thought about how I did things. I thought, oh, okay. And then I thought about it, and I thought, well, while he's running around chasing every single opportunity there is, I'm kind of waiting to see what door opens. And then I can go after that. But I've got a lot more energy because I haven't worn myself out going up after all these different things that are probably not for me. But again, it's different personalities. Some people are more comfortable with trying to make things happen. I am up to a point, but it has to be at the right time, because sometimes you might find that as well. Sometimes everything isn't in place. It's like pushing the river, and everything isn't in place. It has to be before anything can come of it. And by just hanging back, then it gives the universe time to set the table. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I would say the other challenge that I have, which I think is very common in this holistic conscious community, is, the temptation to want to save the world and save everybody on it. And I think that's why so many of the holistic practitioners in whatever modality struggle financially, because they're putting everybody before themselves. And I have to say, when Bill and I embarked on the festival, it was literally, we're going to change the world here. We're going to put this festival on, and, we're going to do it for everybody. And we suffered really quite badly financially. And it's taken quite a shift in attitude to recognize that actually putting yourself first is not selfishness. And that's something that's very quite opposite to the way a lot of healers and coaches and therapists approach it, that they feel their responsibility is to everybody but themselves. And of course, we all know the cliche, you can't give from an empty vessel, but for people that are really drawn to this kind of service, which it is, the temptation is to put everybody first and to try and give from an empty vessel. And we've shifted very much about that. And a lot of it is about self-worth and self-value. And let's face it, I think probably everybody on the planet has some level of self-esteem issues, self-doubt. And part of the journey is to really deal with that, recognize it, overcome it through that process of self-knowledge, self-acceptance, and self-love. And when you get to that point of saying, yes, I am worth this, and actually if I try and help people and assume that they're not in a position to pay, or they're not able to help themselves, then we're actually disempowering them and almost creating a continuation of that disempowerment. And I used to give away a load of coaching and all sorts of things free. And yes, I do a certain amount. My philosophy now is that my work is worth the price that I ask people to pay, and actually worth probably far more. I still give an awful lot of value over and above perhaps, you know, what you think you're paying for. But it becomes a much more equal transaction then of giving and receiving. And I think that imbalance between giving and receiving, and that you give, and almost put a barrier up to receiving, is where a lot of the practitioners really need to work on that, to say, actually, I am doing a fantastic job, I'm giving real value, and I deserve that abundance to come to me in recognition of the value that I'm giving.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I'm a reader, and I found sometimes if I've given readings for free, they haven't been valued the same way as when people make an exchange. And it doesn't have to be money. I used to do the festivals, and I'd give it a reading sometimes in exchange for a crystal or something like that. But if there's no exchange, then, and it's not about you being after the money or anything like that, it's this exchange of energy, and it's not always as valued if somebody hasn't, you know, given even a small amount. It's not valued. I remember I did festivals in New Zealand at one point, and I remember I was out the room, I'd come back in, and somebody was kind of waiting for a reading, and there was quite a few readers around, but sometimes just people pick up on the energy of the person that's right for them that time. It could be somebody else the next week. And she said to me, she said, there's somebody over there, they're doing readings like kind of half the price, but they can't be very good if they're only charging half price, because everybody else was, I can't remember exactly, but say they were charging $20, this person was charging 10, but the assumption, the person probably thought they'd get more readings that way, but they probably got less because they thought they mustn't be very good to be charging so little. So yeah. There's a judgment there, but I think it's you know, people kind of, even if they don't consciously judge, there's an unconscious element to it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are the specific joys you get from the work you do?
Well, where can I start?
I'm sitting comfortably.
Yes. I think the main thing is really the joy of people getting those aha moments, really, you know, issues that have really bugged them for years and been major blockages to moving forward, that suddenly see things in a whole different context. And it's like a release of a burden that enables them to move forward. And that, you know, generally speaking, there is some kind of breakthrough that happens for people when I'm doing my one-to-one work, that happens every single session. And that's really what I find so rewarding, to actually have people feel so much better and so much lighter and much more accepting of themselves and able to see much more of their purpose, and be in a position to move forward and really step into that and achieve it. So, you know, that is a great joy for me. The other thing is that because I immerse myself so much into this, I'm constantly learning, and I love just in finding out more, learning more, discovering new things, like the human design thing I was just mentioning, that was really, wow, this is a really fantastic tool to support the people that I'm working with. So I get a huge amount of joy from that. I think my ultimate underlying purpose or motivation is really to pass on everything that I learn, you know, for the benefit of the people that I'm working with. So, you know, I not only do the Empower Your Life, Achieve Your Dreams coaching program, but also translated that into a workshop. And we actually did a 7,000-mile road trip last year, starting in April, where we delivered the workshop around the Western US and got absolutely wonderful responses from people and ratings from everybody that came along. So I enjoy actually delivering it, the teaching in that way. And one of the attendees actually said, you've got to put this online, you really must do that. And I'd already been thinking about that. So I've now translated that into an online course, which is available on the aSmilingWorld website. And also I enjoy writing as well. I've just written 2 ebooks. One is called the Dream Achievers Success Kit. And that's really about the process of how to set goals in the right way to manifest the things that you want, how to create the right kind of plans, how to implement them in the right way that's in alignment with those universal laws. And I've also put together another book called Empowered Manifestation, which I'm just about to release, which is really putting together the 7 principles and processes involved in manifestation. And so it's really about, the joy I get is learning more about this myself, is passing it on to people so that they can learn and implement it, and to really work closely with people as well and help them move forward in their life in a way that really brings them joy and enables them to address the inevitable challenges that come up in a very positive and empowered way.
And also to find their own life purpose, I suppose, as well.
Well, that's one of the processes I take them through. I mean, the program that I've developed is really in 3 different stages. It's 3 different modules, if you like. And the first one is really dealing with the negative. It's looking at all the things that we carry with us that tell us that we're not good enough, or we've got fears or limiting beliefs and everything else. And that really looks at seeing the experiences that have created those beliefs in a different light. And I have a process called the power of neutrality, which is really about non-judgment. It's saying everything is neutral. It's only when we assign a meaning to it that we decide if it's negative or positive. And, you know, in my own life, and I would bet in your life, there have been lots of situations that have seemed really bad at the time and yet have been absolutely essential in order to either make space or to create some shift that takes you into a much more positive place. So it's really looking at these and saying, what was the purpose of that experience, and shifting that belief system about themselves that has been dragging them down and holding them back. And then I work on accentuating the positive. So this is the self-discovery phase of the personality tests, and taking people through a process of really examining all the different aspects of their life in getting clarity about how those skills are pointing them towards the purpose that they have. And that really came out of the experience I took myself on in discovering my role as mentor, coach, teacher, and so on. And then the third stage is actually saying, okay, now you're getting a much more positive perception of yourself. You've got a clearer idea of what your purpose is at the moment, and our purpose shifts, you know, as we evolve. And then it's into, well, this is how you manifest that purpose, and taking them through that whole process of manifestation so that they can really use it on a practical level in their day-to-day life to implement all of that real understanding of themselves and their direction in a very empowering way that is done on that conscious and manifestation level rather than the conventional kind of third dimensional approach. And that combination is really bringing together so many different elements into a lifestyle that people actually then move forward with. So, you know, that whole thing is really a whole philosophy for life, if you like, because you know, you were saying before about the law of attraction and the secret being quite kind of materially oriented, you know, more about, oh, I'm going to get a big house or I'm going to get a better job or something. But, you know, the point I make in the program is that this is actually an evolutionary path. It's a raising of consciousness, and that in order to become master manifestors, to kind of use a cliche, it's about raising consciousness and changing your mindset into a whole different level. And the point is that if we don't have control over our thoughts and emotions, and we're given the ability to manifest instantly, then we would be in such a lot of trouble, because the chaos would be so much worse than it is now. So we're actually moving up dimensionally. And what I talk about is that you need to move to a fourth dimensional level of thinking, which is the consciousness, the mindfulness, really being in control and choosing the thoughts you have, really examining the emotions you have, being in control of yourself in order to create the outcomes that you want. So that you're actually, it's almost like you need to graduate to that level in order to move to the instant manifestation level, which is, you know, a whole different paradigm.
Yeah, it's I find, I mean, I could talk to you for hours. I think it's it's such an important way forward, and I think the times are changing so much now that people have really got to grasp this, because when you look at all the chaos, there's a lot of manifestation going on that really people, if they knew what they were doing, they would find a way of manifesting something a bit pleasanter. Everything seems to be coming to a head, and everything now is more healing yourself. But it's so important to actually get to the real roots, because there's always a trigger, isn't there? You think you've cleared this, and then suddenly something happens and it triggers you, and there's another level of learning. There's something else that you haven't gone deep enough, and you need to get rid of that layer. And it's just so ongoing, isn't it? All the time.
Oh, it's a continuous process. And you know what I say to people is, don't beat yourself up because you think, oh God, I thought I'd got rid of all this and it's now come back again. I think if people really look at it, they'll find that it's not coming back to the degree that it used to, that there has been progress. And it's like, oh, that's interesting, that's cropped up, okay. But at least now I know I still need to work on it, and I can do that. So it's approaching it in that much more positive way. But I do think, you know, over the last few years, you know, a lot of people say that 2012, December 2012, was a major shift. Everybody expected some kind of cataclysmic or, you know, really obvious shift, but it was an energetic shift, and that's been continuing to higher and higher degrees ever since then. And what's happening is that people, whether consciously or unconsciously, are affected by these energies. And so what's happening is we seem to be getting the divide widening between those who are on that conscious evolutionary path, knowing that that's their journey, versus those that either have no idea about this at all, or who have rejected it or whatever. And I've seen this demonstrated so much in individuals who seem to really manifest really dark outcomes for themselves and really get into almost a sociopathic, psychopathic kind of mindset. So we've got this growing divide between those who choose the path to the light and those who get stuck or are choosing the path of darkness. And the thing that we have to remember is that everybody is at a different level of evolution. We mustn't judge or condemn. We certainly don't make ourselves victims to them or vulnerable to them. We have to approach that in a very empowered way. But if I always say, if you're at that higher level of consciousness, you've already moved to a higher dimension and you're actually immune. It's like this part of this level of the planet doesn't apply to me. I'm kind of invisible to it. So I think we have to accept that there's still a large population that are stuck in that egoic world of reaction, aggression, confrontation, victimhood, and that's just where they are on their evolutionary path, and may well have to go through multiple lifetimes in order to get to a higher level. That's fine. But as long as I keep my focus in the direction that I'm going and on the outcomes that I want to see in terms of the planet, the universe, everything, then we can use that power of the collective consciousness to really move our reality in the direction that we want it to go.
Yeah. You've got to be very self-aware.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So if somebody would like to work with you, Jan, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, the website is aSmilingWorld.org, and there are contact details on there. My email address is janet@aSmilingWorld.com. And there's a contact form on the website as well, on aSmilingWorld.org. And I do offer a free discovery session. I always like to have a session with everybody to begin with, because it's very important to me that we have a rapport, that we establish that there actually is a good relationship there, that we can work together and I can really understand and make the recommendations as to how we proceed. And, I do have the full program, but I don't kind of force people through the sausage machine. Whatever is that particular outcome that somebody wants or issue that they're facing, then it's really about working together at the right pace, focusing on the right things that are going to get them the results that they want, in a shorter time as possible. So it's janet@aSmilingWorld.org, and janet@aSmilingWorld.com. The website is aSmilingWorld.org, and you can get a free download of my Dream Achiever Success Kit there as well. And there's articles and blogs and so on. So
that sounds really good. I assume you do quite a lot by Skype, yeah?
Yes, either phone or Skype, because I've always worked remotely with people. I find it actually works really well, because I feel as though it's less kind of intrusive or threatening for people, because when people are going through emotional things, sometimes if they're face to face, they can feel a little more inhibited, whereas with that bit more of a distance, and I find I can then tune in to the answers, the suggestions, the energy, all of that intuitively, without kind of a distraction of the face-to-face situation, if you follow me. Yeah. So I kind of have this sacred space that I go into, away from all the technology, or as much as possible when I do the session. So I'm turning on the intuitive connection to people, rather than have it disturbed by other distractions. So
Yeah. Jan, it's been wonderful talking to you. As you can see, it's getting darker here because I'm gradually fading into the background. Jan is one of our very valued authors on soulfully connecting. So she's written a number of articles which you can find. Just go to www.soulfully-connecting.com and you will find Jan from the blog, and you can read some of the very insightful articles she's written. Jan, thank you so much for taking the time to sit inside when you've got the sunny Colorado weather. And it's been really a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, and I've loved it too, Sue. It's been absolutely wonderful. So thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
My pleasure, and I'll look forward to further communication with you.
That's great.
Okay, so this is Sue Ellam, Soulfully Connecting, signing off, and so it's goodbye from myself and goodbye from Jan Moore of aSmilingWorld. Goodbye, everybody.